Am I the only one that low-key wants light-up superhero shoes made for adults? Like, it feels like all the great light-up shoes are for children. Why do these manufacturers assume that adults don't want light-up shoes? I mean, they're great for seeing in the dark or just looking like a total badass. I'm just throwing it out there. We need some nice light-up Jordans with like a gigantic Spider-Man logo, okay? Anyways, all buffoonery aside, let's get straight into today's video. And to be honest with you guys, this is going to be like a giant conglomerate of a bunch of different topics because I don't know if they necessarily warrant their own video. So I kind of compiled a few things that I wanted to talk about and I put them together in today's video just for the sake of not editing like 5 different videos. So in today's clip, we're actually going to talk about a number of things. I did want to talk about a new Mezco action figure that just went up for pre-order, but before that I actually wanted to talk about a few of these DC Multiverse action figures that were supposed to be Walmart exclusives and are now selling for astronomically high prices. They sold out through the Walmart website. I'm not 100% sure if these are going to be made available in person. I don't remember seeing anywhere in the descriptions whether these were going to be made available at the physical store or if this was just a collector con event that was going to take place online. If I'm a betting man, I would probably say that they will have a limited stock available at each individual Walmart. So I would say just be smart about it, because I was checking the glow-in-the-dark Walmart exclusive Bane action figure, which if I'm not mistaken is mostly just reused. Maybe there's a new head sculpt. If not, it's just a completely repainted action figure. We've seen this particular Bane I think like maybe 4 times at this point, and it's one of the best looking Bane action figures. I've mentioned this before, but it will scale with your smaller DC action figures in case you want a big giant behemoth of a Bane figure. Like, you could realistically put him in with your Mezco figures, your old Mattel DC Multiverse action figures, and he could eventually fit into your new Mattel DC Multiverse action figure display. So it's important to keep this figure around. If you want to display him with multiple different lines, the imported action figures, the new Mattel line, it will definitely fit in there. He'll be a little bit bigger than what Bane was in the original source material, but that's okay. Bane is usually portrayed as a really big character. This figure is actually reselling on eBay. If you're accounting for like taxes and shipping, you're paying about like $120 to $130. Absolutely ridiculous prices, because that's what the original Bane was going for when it first got announced as a mega fig. It was, I think it was retailing back then for like $40, and it was reselling for as high as like I think $200. Once the Nightfall 2 pack released, it kind of decimated the market and it made that original Bane drop a little bit. And then obviously this one has had a similar effect, but still over $100 for this figure. I don't know, it seems like quite a bit of a markup. Not to mention, it is somewhat limited, but it's not like a crazy number. We have seen some of these DC Multiverse action figures be limited to like 3,000 action figures. In this particular case, it's being limited to a little bit over 6,000. So it's not like a ridiculously low run. There's a decent amount out there, 6,000. I think if you're patient enough, you should be able to find at least a few of these at your physical stores. The other figure that I did happen to run across is the Emerald Twilight Green Lantern cover recreation action figure. If I'm not mistaken, this one was retailing for $29.99, and now it is also being resold online for close to about $100. You will see some listings for like $79.99, but it doesn't include shipping and taxes. So once you factor that in, you're paying about like $100 to about $110. Drastically high prices, right? And now this is a pretty iconic comic book recreation, and it's nice to see McFarlane kind of thinking outside the box. It's not something that I would usually expect from a manufacturer, to give you a collectible where you can essentially recreate a comic book cover, but still it's a pretty hefty markup. Not to mention, as I said before, there's a very strong possibility that at least a few of these will make an appearance at physical stores. It just goes to show that, number one, McFarlane is clearly not manufacturing enough of certain characters or enough of certain action figures. And it also goes to show that McFarlane still has a decent fan base. There's still a pretty good fandom that is willing to follow him to the ends of the world. And we're clearly seeing that with some of his newer releases. I will say I was kind of surprised at the sheer amount of collectibles that McFarlane decided to release through the Walmart Collector Con. If I'm not mistaken, there were quite a few DC Multiverse action figures. He had a couple of the Mortal Kombat 2-packs, as well as I think some Airbender action figures snuck in there somewhere. I could be wrong on that, but I think I remember correctly. He just did have quite a few action figures available, and I'm pleasantly surprised. I like when McFarlane continues to bombard us with action figures. I know for the most part we're complaining about not being able to keep up, but I think that's a good thing, especially when it comes down to the DC universe. And so it's nice to continue seeing him give us some absolute bangers. Clearly there's quite a bit of demand for these action figures. It's just an absolute shame that he didn't make these a little bit more widely available. And as I said at the beginning of the video, I was going to kind of mix and match when it came down to just action figure news in general. And I did also want to talk about the 1/12 Mezco Marv action figure from the Sin City comic book series. If you guys haven't really paid attention too much to Sin City, I highly suggest you at least read a little bit or a tiny brief description. Frank Miller is an absolute mastermind, and it's nice to see his comic book storyline get a little bit of love here, especially coming from Mezco. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you how amazing the promotional images look from Mezco, because they do that all the time. I think it's essentially been beaten to death here. They do a phenomenal job of posing the action figures, showcasing everything that it comes with, and just editing the heck out of all of the images. The figure will include 3 separate head sculpts, 9 hands total, a hacksaw, a hatchet, a handgun with 2 ammo clips, a couple of different blast effect pieces for the gun. They're also including a decapitated Kevin head sculpt here, a pair of handcuffs, some lit up cigarettes, a cigarette pack, an open lighter. And most people will say things like it's taken directly out of the comic book or it's jumping out of the comic book pages. In my personal humble opinion, I don't necessarily see that. I feel like they took Frank Miller's character, they ran him through a more like modern filter, and that's essentially what we got in action figure form. I think the figure looks absolutely brilliant. I love the soft goods all around, and it is worth mentioning we actually did get a closer look at this figure, if I'm not mistaken, at New York Comic Con, not at SDCC. I don't remember seeing him available or on display at SDCC. I could be wrong. I'd have to go back and look at the little recap that I did, but yes, it was there on display, and I did hear some great things about the figure. So overall, if you guys are interested, it is now up for pre-order. And you know, if you're a big fan of just Dark Horse comic books in general or Frank Miller, I think this is a definite must pick up. Now, obviously, with Mezco, you're going to get the soft goods, you're going to get the realism, but I love the fact that they decided to do a wired jacket here, because as you guys can see in the promotional images, it just brings a little bit more action to the jacket overall. It makes it feel like it's, you know, in the wind, it's flowing. I feel like it adds another layer of intricacy to the figure, and I absolutely love it. To end today's video, I actually wanted to talk about some Spawn action figures. I know I don't usually do that pretty consistently, but I am a huge Spawn fan. I just don't have any room in my display, and it would be another action figure line to jump into when I'm trying to cut back as much as I possibly can. But I've always loved the Spawn universe, and in today's video I thought that we would talk about some really interesting releases. Now, some of these may be a little bit old in terms of the news cycle. I think some of these might have gone showcased maybe a couple of weeks ago. I think a couple of these were featured during the Walmart Collector Con, but I just didn't get a chance to actually talk about them. But as of the moment of this recording, they should be available either through the McFarlane website, through GameStop, and in some cases I think they should be made available in store at Target and Walmart, so definitely keep an eye on those. First off, I wanted to talk about the Call of Duty Burned Spawn action figure. I have no connection to Call of Duty. I'm not a huge fan of the video game franchise. I haven't legitimately played video games in like about 10 years. I'll occasionally play a Fortnite match here and there. I'll jump in on some Minecraft because of, you know, my tiny little toddler, but overall Call of Duty just never really resonated with me. But I like the skins that they've been doing so far. I think they've done at least 2 separate Call of Duty Spawn action figures, and I actually genuinely enjoyed both of them. The figure will come with 3 separate guns as well as a wired cloth cape, and I have to say the intricacy on the body mold for this particular figure is top notch. I love all of the pockets. I love the bulletproof vest, or the military style vest that he's wearing. It just adds like a weird layer of realism, even though the figure isn't based on anything real, but still I just genuinely enjoy the design and the look for this figure. I'm not 100% sure how much of this is reused, because there could be some reuse from that Keanu Reeves Berserker action figure from a few months ago. That one came with like extra burnt limbs, or like extra like battle damaged limbs and things of that nature, so he could be reusing some parts here and there. He also had some boots and like a combat style attire on his lower torso, so there could be some reuse here and there, but I just feel like this figure could easily fit into multiple different displays. If you have a video game style display, he fits in there perfectly, or if you want him in your Spawn universe or even your DC display, I think he just fits in perfectly. You can swap him in and out. He's a really well designed character, and I think the body mold overall is incredibly intricate for a figure that is going to retail for about $30. Now, I should mention there are 2 different versions for this. There's the regular version, and I think that one was available through GameStop. I'm not 100% sure if it's going to be made available through other different websites. And then there's the autographed version, which I believe is going to have a small little release in store through certain different retailers, if I'm not mistaken, Walmart and Target. But at the moment of this recording, you could actually purchase it directly from the McFarlane toy store. So if you guys are interested in either one of these, you can do so. I think the original one is going to go for about $29.99, and then the autograph version is going to go for $49.99. So you pay a little bit of a markup for the signature. I would say, and this is just my personal opinion, I would only do that if you were actually going to take the card and actually have it graded. On the other hand, you know, McFarlane's signatures, you know, he tends to just sign anything that he manufactures or is even remotely attached to, so I don't think, you know, it's that difficult to acquire a signature. I would actually much rather have his signature on like a comic book or something that's a little bit more iconic. A card, I'm not sure if it's necessarily worth the markup, but you guys can make that choice on your own. Moving on, there will also be a Spawn 77, and this one will also have 2 separate releases. There will be the black and red variant, and then the blue and red variant. It's exactly the same figure. I think it will come with, both of them will come with alternate hands, and then a plethora of different accessories and weapons. It just depends on which version you want. Like the one that is the red and blue color scheme will actually come with like a giant minigun that he can hold. I'm not sure what the correct terminology for the weapon is, but it's one of those gigantic like rail guns that he carries around. And then the other one will have a plethora of different like rifles and things of that nature. So the black and red variant essentially comes with like rifles and snipers and much smaller weaponry, whereas in the blue and red one will come with that gigantic minigun. And I'm assuming because it's bigger, because it's a bigger weapon and it, you know, requires more plastic, maybe that's why they scaled it down. But essentially with the black and red variant, you will be getting 5 different guns, and then with the blue and red variant, you will be getting 3 different guns. So because you're getting the heavier one, the bigger one, they're gonna cut back a little bit on the amount that you get. But honestly, I actually like the blue and red color variant. There's just a little bit of Spider-Man that I see in Spawn's mask, the blue and red one anyways, and I just absolutely love that gigantic gun that he's supposed to be carrying around. although the other one I think is more of a classic color tone for Spawn, but either one I think will fit into any particular display. Now, regardless of what version or which color palette you prefer, it really doesn't matter. Either one of these will retail at $29.99, which honestly isn't really that bad of a price. McFarlane has been marking up his DC collectibles over the past few months, where if you're getting a regular DC Multiverse action figure for about $28, sometimes it will come with no extra accessories or just like extra exchangeable hands. In this particular case, he's going above and beyond because Spawn is his baby. He built up the franchise. It belongs to him. He doesn't have to pay a markup. He doesn't have to pay a licensing fee. You know, it's his own character, so he can manufacture and create as many accessories as he possibly can into the packaging, and all of the profit goes into his pocket. So it just makes more sense that you get way more with Spawn than you do with DC. But overall, there you guys have it. I don't want to ramble or take too much of your time. I just wanted to kind of encapsulate multiple different storylines that are happening right now within the action figure community and just kind of package them and send them off your way. Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. If you guys do, make sure to stay tuned. We upload pretty consistently at the moment. We're uploading on a daily basis. I may miss a day here or there just because life gets pretty busy, but I try to stay consistent and upload at least once on a daily basis. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure to stay safe out there. Enjoy the hobby. Pose your action figures. Play around with them. Pre-order figures. Go out looking for stuff. I've heard people are finding some absolute bangers out at Ross and Burlington and, you know, discount stores. So it's always nice to stay within your budget. And the best way to do that is to find clearance action figures and stuff that's on sale. So let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.